He screamed at me and shoved me. Yes, my own son. I picked up my things and left. The next day, my daughter-in-law threw a noisy party and shouted, "Finally, the old loser is gone. We're free." They celebrated the betrayal, not realizing that justice was already just around the corner. Among the crowd of guests, no one saw how slowly the door opened. Before we continue, subscribe to William's Revenge Stories, and tell us in the comments where you're listening from. I got home a little after 9, jacket slung over my arm, still warm from dinner with my university colleagues. Michael had told a story about a student who turned in a paper on the Civil War written entirely in haikus. We laughed until our stomachs hurt. The cold evening air hit my face as I walked to the front door, keys already in hand. The house was silent when I entered. Too silent. Stuart's car was in the driveway, and Millicent's sedan was blocking the garage. I hung my jacket on the rack. I loosened my tie. The light from the living room glowed ahead. The TV was mumbling. Then I noticed the door to my office. Closed. I always left it open. Always. 30 years of habit don't just break overnight. I turned the knob. Pushed. The door swung inward. My desk was gone. Where 8 decades of accumulated history had been. Books on Reconstruction, leather-bound journals, the roll-top desk my grandfather built in 1943. There was a daybed, patterned sheets, throw pillows. My bookshelves were empty, bare wood where the spines of books had pressed for years. The maps I had collected, hand-drawn plans of the Underground Railroad routes, were rolled up in a corner like discarded wrapping paper. The room smelled like fresh paint, the beige walls I had kept, forest green. My sanctuary was gone. I just stood in the doorway, breathing hard. Behind me, laughter came from the TV. I walked down the hall and into the living room. Stuart and Millicent were on the sofa. Her feet were tucked under his leg, his arm draped over the cushions behind her. A comedy show played on the screen. Neither of them looked up when I walked in. "What happened to my study?" Millicent glanced at me, then back at the TV. Her voice had the tone you use when explaining something obvious to a small child. "We needed a guest room. Besides, the house is too big for just one person." Stuart was still staring at the screen. A tightness gripped my chest. "That is my study. In my house. Put it back." Millicent turned her head. Her face held no warmth, no apology, just pure practicality. "We live here too, you know. We need space. You'll adjust. You'll adjust." As if I were an inconvenience to be managed. As if the room where I had graded papers, written lectures, and preserved history for 3 decades was just extra space. Stuart finally spoke, not meeting my eyes. "Dad, don't make this a big deal." I pushed past them, back toward the study. What used to be my study. I would start moving things back myself. Tonight, right now. Stuart stood up. "Stop!" I tried to grab the doorframe. His hand clamped down on my shoulder. "We're not changing it back." I tried to move around him. His grip tightened, pulling me back. "Get your hands off me!" His face turned bright red. Something snapped behind his eyes. Frustration, resentment, something that had been brewing for months. "You're ruining everything. Always complaining, you old man. Your rules, your precious things. You're destroying our life." The words echoed off the walls. For an instant, silence hung between us. Then he shoved me, both palms flat against my chest. Hard, sudden. I stumbled backward. My arms windmilled. My shoulder hit the wall. I caught myself, breathing heavily, staring at my son's hands, still raised, still trembling. 3 seconds of absolute silence. From the sofa, Millicent watched. A small smile played at the corner of her mouth. Something inside me turned cold. It wasn't anger. Anger burns. This was ice forming over deep water. I straightened up. I looked at Stuart. I looked at Millicent. I said nothing. I walked to my bedroom and pulled my travel duffel from the closet, the canvas one I used for conferences and research trips to archives in Charleston and Philadelphia. I opened the drawers. Shirts. Packed. Neatly folded. Socks. My father's watch from the dresser. The documents I kept in my nightstand. Passport. Insurance papers. The deed to this house. With my name as the sole owner. Stuart appeared in the doorway. "Dad, where are you going?" I didn't answer. I didn't even look up. I just kept folding, packing, moving with methodical precision. "Dad, answer me!" Millicent's voice came from behind him, lazy and mocking. "Just let him go. He'll be back when he gets hungry." I zipped the bag. I picked it up. I walked past both of them. At the front door, I paused. I looked back one last time at the house I bought 40 years ago with my first mortgage payment. The house where I raised Stuart after his mother died. Where I had built a life from nothing. Stuart stood in the hallway. Confusion flickered on his face. Millicent leaned against the wall, smirking. Victorious. The door clicked shut quietly behind me. I stood on my porch, my home at my back. The dark, empty street stretched out before me. The March wind cut through my shirt. I pulled out my phone, looked at the time. 9:47. I scrolled through my contacts, stopped on Neil Hunter. Before I called, I looked through the living room window. Millicent was laughing, saying something to Stuart. My son nodded and sank back into the sofa. Like nothing had happened. Like shoving his father was just a small inconvenience, now over. Problem solved. I clenched my jaw. I pressed the call button. Neil answered on the second ring. "Neil, I need a place to stay tonight. No explanation, no emotion. Just the facts. Come on over." The line clicked. I walked to my car, bag in hand. Behind me, through the window, I didn't notice Millicent watching me leave. I didn't see her smile widen, but I would remember it later. Neil's porch light was already on when I pulled into his driveway, 2 houses down from mine, close enough that I could see my own roofline over the neighbor's oak tree. He opened the door before I knocked. Reading glasses perched on his head, a heavy flannel robe pulled tight. He didn't ask questions. He just stepped aside. "Guest room's ready. Coffee?" I nodded and followed him down the hall, lined with photos of his late wife, Margaret. We had been neighbors for 15 years. Friends for all of them. Shared tools. Shared dinners. The shared, comfortable silence of 2 men who had learned that some things don't need to be explained. We sat at his kitchen table, 2 mugs between us. The clock above the sink ticked steadily. I finally spoke. "I made a mistake, Neil." He waited. "But I'm going to fix it." He watched me for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "The guest room is yours for as long as you need." That was it. I lay awake in Neil's guest room, staring at the ceiling. Through the window I could see my house. The lights were still on downstairs. After midnight they finally went out. I replayed the night. Stuart's hands pushing me. Millicent's smirk. The casual cruelty in her voice. He'll be back when he gets hungry. My study, transformed. Erased as if it never existed. As if 30 years of work, of building a life, meant nothing. When had I become a guest in my own home? When did their convenience matter more than my dignity? The anger wasn't hot anymore. It had crystallized into something else. Clarity. I sat up, opened my phone, and scrolled back. Old texts, photos, fragments of conversations. I stopped on Christmas, 3 years ago. Millicent, drunk arm slung around Stuart. She'd said something that night. About leaving Ohio behind. About mistakes she wouldn't make again. At the time, I dismissed it. I was sitting in my car across the street from my house, watching. I had checked Stuart's work calendar online. His company posted team schedules publicly. They were both gone by 8:30 on weekdays. Their cars disappeared down the street. I waited another 10 minutes, counting the seconds, just to be sure. The house already looked different. New curtains in the front window, pale yellow, Millicent's taste. A decorative wreath hung on my front door. My door. Erasing me, piece by piece. The Sunday morning stretched out quietly. Around noon, the first car arrived, then another. By early afternoon, a dozen cars lined the street. People I didn't recognize carried in bottles and bags of food. The music started, faint at first, then louder. The bass thudded through the walls. Stuart appeared on the porch briefly, shoulders hunched, then disappeared back inside. They were having a party. Less than 24 hours after I left. Neil returned from his walk and found me still at the window. "What's going on over there?" I didn't turn. A celebration, apparently. He looked, saw the cars, the people streaming into my yard. "You want me to go over?" "No, just watch with me." He pulled up a chair. As evening fell, the party got louder. People spilled onto the lawn. In the crowd, I saw Millicent, moving between guests, animated, laughing. She wore a dress I'd never seen, tight and red and expensive. The music vibrated. Someone brought out champagne. Stuart lurked at the edges, drinking steadily, seeming to shrink with every glass. Then, around 8, Millicent came out onto the porch. She was drunk, unsteady on her feet. She yelled something to someone inside. People burst out laughing. Millicent raised her glass. Her voice carried across the lawn, across the street, through Neil's window where I stood 2 houses away. Finally, the old loser is gone. We're free. The guests erupted, clinking glasses, cheering. Someone shouted, "To freedom!" Millicent threw her head back, laughing. Stuart appeared behind her, tried to pull her inside. She shrugged him off so hard he stumbled. "Don't be such a coward, Stuart. He's not coming back. This is our house now." I gripped my coffee mug so hard my knuckles turned white. Neil stood beside me, a silent witness, but my face remained impassive, almost calm. "Old loser," I repeated quietly. Curious choice of words. I set the mug down, pulled out my phone, scrolled back through years of messages, photos, casual conversations. I found what I was looking for. That Christmas photo, Millicent, clearly drunk, grinning at the camera. That night. What else had she said? Something about Cleveland, about learning from mistakes, about never going back to Ohio. I dismissed it at the time. Bad job, bad apartment, bad breakup. People say things when they drink. But watching her celebrate my absence, the words clicked into place. I opened my browser. I typed Millicent Porter, Cleveland, Ohio. I hit search. Neil glanced at the screen. "What are you doing?" I didn't answer right away. I just scanned the results. Marriage licenses, public records, property transfers. Then I found it. Research. Neil. I taught history for 30 years. I know how to dig up the past. The party raged on late into the night. Around 10, guests started to leave. Loud goodbyes. Promises to do it again soon. The lights in my house finally dimmed around midnight. I was still at the window, phone in hand. A legal pad was beside me, filling up with notes in my neat historian's script. Neil brought me a tea. "You should get some sleep." I finally looked away from the window. My face felt different. Set. Focused. I found something. I showed him the screen. Millicent Porter married someone in Ohio 8 years ago. Gordon Hayes. I can't find any record of a divorce. She just disappeared. Neil took it in. Does Stuart know? I doubt it. She changed her name back to Porter before she met him. I kept scrolling, but Gordon Hayes didn't disappear. He's still out there, looking for her. I opened a new message. The number came from a public record search. Gordon Hayes, Cleveland, Ohio. I typed carefully. "I know where Millicent Porter is. We should talk." I stared at the dark house where my son slept next to a woman who had just called me an old loser, where my study had been erased, where I had been pushed, ridiculed, and dismissed. I hit send. Now we wait. Neil said nothing. He just nodded. Outside, the street was finally quiet. Inside, I felt something new taking shape. It wasn't rage. It wasn't grief. It was purpose. 2 days passed. Monday, I let Stuart and Millicent settle into their routine. Tuesday morning, I was sitting in my car across the street from my house, watching. I had checked Stuart's work calendar online. His company posted team schedules publicly. They were both gone by 8:30 on weekdays. Their cars disappeared down the street. I waited another 10 minutes, counting the seconds, just to be sure. The house already looked different. New curtains in the front window, pale yellow, Millicent's taste. A decorative wreath hung on my front door. My door. Erasing me, piece by piece. I pulled into the driveway. My key still worked. They hadn't changed the locks. Not yet. Inside, the air was wrong. Millicent's perfume hung heavy, thick and floral. The living room furniture was rearranged. The sofa was crammed against the opposite wall. New pillows were scattered across it. I moved quickly down the hall to my bedroom, but it wasn't mine anymore. The bed was different, larger, with a modern frame. My dresser was shoved in the corner, an afterthought. Her clothes cluttered the closet. but they didn't know everything. I knelt down, pressed the back panel. It clicked open softly. The hidden safe I'd installed 20 years ago. The combination turned smoothly under my fingers. Inside, the deed to the house, my name, sole owner. The car title, my will. Bank statements, birth certificates. Everything important. Everything that proved ownership. I filled my briefcase methodically, listening for any sound. On the way out, I stopped at what used to be my study. The guest room, with those ridiculous throw pillows and generic landscape prints on the walls. But one of my books was still on a shelf, its spine showing. The Art of War. I took it. Appropriate. The Rochester Public Library became my office. I arrived when the doors opened, settled at a desk near the genealogy section. 30 years of teaching history had taught me how to trace records, cross-reference sources, and build a timeline from scraps. First, marriage records, New York State. No record of marriage for Millicent Porter and Stuart Tucker. Curious. I expanded to Ohio. There it was, Cuyahoga County. June 12, 2015. Millicent Ann Porter married Gordon Michael Hayes. I printed the certificate. My hands were shaking slightly. No divorce filed in Ohio. I checked New York. Nothing. Pennsylvania, Michigan, surrounding states, nothing. The marriage was never dissolved. Millicent just left. Next, social media. Gordon Hayes wasn't hard to find. His Facebook profile was public. Posts going back years. Desperate posts. Still looking for Millicent Porter Hayes. If anyone has any information, please contact me. I scrolled back. Posts about debt collectors calling. Ruined credit. A struggling business. The dates spanned 2018, 2019, 2020, right up to the present. The most recent one was 2 weeks ago. 8 years of looking. An $85,000 debt she left me with. I just want justice. I screenshotted every post with my phone. This wasn't just leverage. This was a weapon. Each night I spread the documents out on Neil's guest room desk. He'd bring in dinner, no questions asked, but his eyes would linger on the papers. Marriage certificates. Printed Facebook posts. My notes in neat script. You're building something, he observed. I nodded. A case. Like a historical argument. Evidence. Sources. Narrative. I created a timeline on a legal pad. 2015. Millicent marries Gordon in Cleveland. 2017. She disappears. Moves to Rochester. Reverts to her maiden name, Porter. 2018. Meets Stuart at work. 2019. They get married, but she's already married. Her marriage to Stuart is invalid. 2020 to 2025. She builds a life on a lie. She's a ghost, I told Neil, living under false pretenses. But ghosts can be exposed. Neil picked up the marriage certificate, examining it. What are you going to do with this? The answer came easily. Remind her that the past doesn't stay buried. Thursday night. 1 week after I'd left, I drafted the Facebook message to Gordon Hayes. I rewrote it 3 times. The tone had to be right. Informational, not threatening. Clear, not desperate. Final version. Mr. Hayes. My name is David Tucker. I live in Rochester, New York. I believe I have found Millicent Porter. I pulled into the driveway. My key still worked. They hadn't changed the locks. Not yet. Inside, the air was wrong. Millicent's perfume hung heavy, thick and floral. The living room furniture was rearranged. The sofa was crammed against the opposite wall. New pillows were scattered across it. I moved quickly down the hall to my bedroom, but it wasn't mine anymore. The bed was different, larger, with a modern frame. My dresser was shoved in the corner, an afterthought. A screenshot from Millicent's Instagram, posted 3 days ago. Her at a restaurant holding up a wine glass. The caption read, "Living my best life." I paused, just before hitting send. This was the point of no return. Once Gordon knew, events would take on a life of their own. I thought of Millicent's voice. Old loser. I thought of Stuart's hands pushing me. I thought of my study, erased. I hit send. The reply came 6 hours later. Thursday night. I was still awake, phone in my hand. The notification lit up the dark room. Gordon Hayes. Is this real? I've been looking for 8 years. If you're lying or trying to scam me, I'll report you. But if this is true, I need to know everything. When can we talk? I replied immediately. This is real. I have the marriage certificate, her current address, and proof she's been living here since 2017. I understand your caution. I'm cautious too. Would you be willing to come to Rochester? We should meet in person. I can show you everything I've found. His reply came in minutes. I can be there this weekend. Where and when? I thought for a moment. Not Neil's house. Too personal. Not my house. Too risky. Public, neutral. Saturday morning. The Nutcracker Cafe on Lake Avenue, near Lake Ontario. 10 o'clock. I'll be at a back table. I'm 62, gray hair. I'll have a folder. Gordon's reply. I'll be there, don't fail me. I put the phone down. The pieces were clicking into place. Friday passed in preparation. I organized the documents, the marriage certificate, the Instagram photos of Millicent in Rochester, screenshots of Gordon's posts looking for her, printouts of Stuart and Millicent's wedding announcement from 2019. I made 2 copies of everything, one for me, one for Gordon. Neil watched me work. You're sure about this? I looked up. I've never been more sure of anything. That night, I drove past my house one more time. The lights glowed inside. I could see shapes moving behind the curtains. My house, occupied by people who had pushed me out, who had celebrated my absence. Saturday morning would change everything. I drove back to Neil's and set my alarm for early. Tomorrow, I would meet Gordon Hayes. Tomorrow, the past would catch up with Millicent. I lay awake, not with anxiety, but with anticipation. This is what justice felt like. Cold, patient, inevitable. Saturday morning arrived, cold and bright. I got to the Nutcracker Cafe 45 minutes early, claimed a table in the back corner with a clear view of the entrance. The place was small, locally owned, half full with weekend regulars. I ordered a black coffee and set my folder on the table. Not open, but visible. Proof I had come prepared. My phone showed 9:30. Gordon said he would drive from Cleveland overnight, arriving around 10. I watched the door. A young couple with a toddler, an old woman with a newspaper, 2 college students with laptops. None of them were Gordon. At 9:55, a man walked in who matched the Facebook photos, but worse. Thinner, sharper features, exhaustion carved into every line of his face. He looked mid-40s, but wore it like he was 10 years older. He scanned the cafe. He saw me. He saw the folder. Our eyes met. Gordon nodded once. I pointed to the empty seat across from me. He bypassed the preamble entirely. Show me. No greeting. No handshake. His voice was hoarse, like he hadn't slept. He probably hadn't. Not after driving 6 hours through the night. I respected the directness. I opened the folder and slid the marriage certificate across the table. Cuyahoga County, Ohio, June 12, 2015. Millicent Ann Porter and Gordon Michael Hayes. Gordon picked it up with hands that trembled slightly. He stared at it. Where did you get this? Public record. Took me 3 days to find it, but it's there. No divorce ever filed. Not in Ohio. Not in any surrounding state. I slid the next document over. This is a wedding announcement. Rochester Paper, November 2019. Millicent Porter marries Stuart Tucker, my son. Gordon's jaw tightened. I could see the muscle jump under his skin. She told me she wanted a divorce. Back in 2017, said she'd file the papers. Then she vanished. I pushed the Instagram screenshots across. She's been here since 2017, built a new life, pretended the old one never happened. Gordon's hands clenched into fists on the tabletop. Where is she? Right now. I signaled the waitress for more coffee, giving him time to process. When he looked up, his eyes were wet, but his voice was steady. We met in 2014. She was charming, ambitious, talked about starting a catering business. I believed in her. We got married fast. Too fast, I realize now. He paused, accepted the coffee, took a long drink. Within a year, she had me taking out business loans, $40,000 for a startup investment, then personal loans for equipment, another $25,000, credit cards for inventory, another 20,000. The business never launched, always an excuse. Permits were delayed, suppliers backed out, the market wasn't right. Meanwhile, she was spending new clothes, expensive dinners, a car she needed for deliveries that never happened. His voice cracked just slightly. February 2017. I woke up and she was gone. Closet empty. Bank account drained. She took the $12,000 cash we had saved for rent, left a note saying she needed space, that she was filing for divorce, and would be in touch about splitting the debt. He looked at me. I never heard from her again. A few months later, the collectors started calling. My credit was destroyed. I had to fold my construction business. Couldn't get financing. I've spent 8 years rebuilding, just surviving. A heavy silence sat between us. Why are you helping me? I didn't answer right away. I pulled out one more document, a photo taken from Neil's window, the party at my house, Millicent on the porch raising a toast. This was taken 1 week ago. That's my house. I bought it 40 years ago, raised my son there. Millicent and Stuart have been living there, slowly taking over. Last Saturday I came home to find they'd turned my study into a guest room, without my permission. When I protested, my son shoved me. I left. I tapped the photo. The next day, Millicent threw a party to celebrate my absence. She called me an old loser and said they were finally free. Gordon stared at the photo. Understanding dawned on his face. So this is revenge. I shook my head. This is consequences. She took your money, your credit, your business. She's trying to take my home, my dignity. She leaves destruction in her wake and just starts over somewhere new. That has to stop. I leaned forward. I'm not asking you to do anything illegal, Gordon, but you have legal standing. She owes you money. Your marriage is still valid. I just want her to face the consequences of her actions. Gordon was silent for a long time, taking it all in. Finally, "Oh, what exactly are you proposing?" I laid it out. You have grounds for divorce and financial restitution in Ohio. The marriage was never dissolved. She left you with documented debt. These are facts. Filing those papers will expose her legal trouble. Her marriage to my son is technically bigamy. Invalid. That has consequences. I paused. I'm not asking you to confront her violently or threaten her. I'm asking you to reclaim what's legally yours. Gordon nodded slowly. But you want more than just paperwork filed, don't you? A small smile touched my lips. I want her to understand that her actions have consequences, that she can't just erase people and move on. If you were to show up in Rochester, to serve her with the lawsuit papers personally, well, that's your right as a plaintiff in a financial case. Gordon's expression changed. Not a smile. Something harder. When? Soon. I need to finalize a few things on my end. Take legal action regarding my house to protect my position. But in a few weeks, the time will be right. She's planning something. She thinks she's won. I want you there when reality hits her. Gordon put his hand out across the table. You tell me when. I've waited 8 years. I can wait a few more weeks, until the time is right. We spent another hour at the cafe. I gave Gordon detailed information. Millicent's current address, her place of work, Stuart's schedule. Gordon took notes, his earlier exhaustion replaced by focus. I'll need to get the paperwork filed in Ohio first, Gordon said. Make the legal case official. Then, when I come to Rochester, it's not just a confrontation. It's serving legitimate legal documents. Good. Exactly. Everything above board. You are not harassing her. You are exercising your legal rights. Gordon packed up the copies of the documents I'd made. You know this won't get my money back, right? Even if I win a judgment, she'll probably just declare bankruptcy. I nodded. I know. This isn't about money. Not for either of us. It's about making sure people can't just use other people and walk away clean. We stood to leave. Gordon paused at the door. I'll start filing on Monday. I'll call you when I have a court date. Then we'll plan my trip to Rochester. I shook his hand again. Thank you, Gordon, for being willing to see this through. I watched Gordon drive off, his brake lights disappearing down Lake Avenue toward the highway. I sat in my own car, the folder on the passenger seat, phone in my hand. The next steps were clear. Contact a lawyer. Get the eviction process for Stewart and Millicent started. Formalize my ownership documentation. Prepare the legal groundwork to take back my house. But that was paperwork. The real power move was already in motion. Gordon, filing in Ohio, establishing Millicent's bigamy, her debt. I started my car and drove back toward Neil's. On impulse, I detoured, driving past my own house. Saturday mid-morning, Stewart's car was in the drive. I could see movement through the window. A normal weekend. They had no idea what was coming. I didn't stop. I just drove past, slowly. In 2 weeks, maybe 3, Gordon would be back in Rochester, and Millicent's carefully constructed lie would come crashing down. I almost felt sorry for Stewart. Almost. But Stewart made his choice when he put his hands on his father. The following Tuesday, I was in a law office downtown, 3rd floor of a renovated brick building on East Avenue. The plaque read, Martin Caldwell, attorney at law. I'd known Martin for years, from the university. He'd been a guest lecturer in a business law course. We had a cordial relationship. Not friends exactly, but professional acquaintances. Martin was in his late 50s. Methodical, pragmatic. The kind of lawyer who read every word before you signed. He listened as I explained, keeping the emotion out of it. My son and daughter-in-law are living in my home. There is no lease. They have taken over space, made unauthorized modifications. There was a physical altercation. I presented the deed, my name solely on the title. I want them out. What is the legal process? Martin leaned back, steepling his fingers. New York requires a formal eviction process, even for family with no lease. First step is a written notice to vacate, giving them 30 days. If they don't leave, we file an unlawful detainer action with the court. With your clear title and no lease, you'll win. But it takes time. 2 to 3 months total. I nodded. Start the paperwork. I want everything done by the book. No room for them to claim I acted improperly. April 1st arrived. An appropriate date, I thought grimly. Martin's office had prepared the official notice to vacate, a formal, notarized legal document. Ready to be sent certified mail, return receipt requested. Stewart Tucker and Millicent Porter Tucker are hereby notified to quit and vacate the premises located at. Failure to comply within 30 days of receipt will result in legal eviction proceedings. I stood at the post office window, holding the envelope. This was the formal declaration of war. No ambiguity. I handed it to the clerk, watched her stamp it, got the tracking number. It would arrive tomorrow, Wednesday. I imagined Millicent's face when she opened it. Stewart's panic. Good. Let them feel uncertainty for a change. That night, Neil mentioned it casually over dinner. Ran into the Hendersons today. They live 2 doors down from you. Millicent told them you'd moved out permanently, that you and Stewart had come to an agreement and you were signing the house over to them. I froze, fork halfway to my mouth. She... What? Neil nodded. She's telling everyone the house is hers now. Even had an interior designer over there yesterday. Heard them talking about paint swatches for the living room. My expression didn't change. But inside, a cold satisfaction. Let her get comfortable. It will make the fall harder. The next 2 weeks I developed a routine. Stewart's work schedule was predictable. Out by 8, back around 6. Millicent worked from home most days. But she had client meetings downtown on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Those were my windows. The spare key still worked. The one I'd hidden in the garage behind a loose board. Installed years ago for emergencies. They'd never found it. My first visit, I walked through my own home like a stranger casing it. The living room furniture was completely rearranged. My old leather recliner, the one I'd read in for 20 years, was gone. Banished to the basement. New art on the walls. My family photos, taken down. In the master bedroom, my belongings were shoved into boxes in the closet, stored for eventual disposal. I photographed everything with my phone. The locks on the study, my study, were changed. They'd finally locked it after taking it over. The whole house was being repainted. Their belongings were scattered in every room. In the kitchen, I opened the cabinets. Expensive cookware I'd never bought. I checked the mail on the counter. Renovation estimates. From contractors. $15,000 for kitchen upgrades. $8,000 for master bath remodel. They were planning to use my equity. I photographed those too. My second visit, I found Millicent's laptop, open on the dining room table. She'd forgotten to close it before she left. I shouldn't have looked, but strategic advantage is important. I opened her email, a message from a real estate agent. Great to meet you. As requested, attached is the market analysis for your property. Current value estimated at $420,000. Let me know when you're ready to discuss selling strategy. My blood ran cold. She was planning to sell. My house. I took a picture of the screen. Stuart called. Several times after the eviction notice arrived, the first message, Wednesday night. Dad, what is this? A legal notice? We need to talk. This is insane. Call me. I deleted it. Thursday. Dad, please. Millicent is freaking out. We don't understand why you're doing this. We can work this out. Just call me. Delete. Friday. This is ridiculous. You can't just kick us out. We've been living here for 3 years. We have rights. We're calling a lawyer. The tone changed. Desperation turning to anger. I didn't answer any of them. Saturday, Stuart showed up at Neil's door. I listened from the kitchen as Neil handled it. Is my dad here? I need to talk to him. Neil's voice carefully neutral. He's staying with me, Stuart. Yes. But he doesn't want to see you right now. This is insane! Over one stupid argument? He's trying to make us homeless. That's between you and him. And your lawyers, apparently. Stuart's voice cracked. Can you just tell him to call me, please? Neil paused. I'll tell him you stopped by. That's all I can do. The door closed. I stood in the kitchen, not moving. Stuart had his chance to be reasonable. That chance ended when he put his hands on me. I kept Gordon updated, weekly, using encrypted messages. Gordon's suggestion. He'd learned caution over the years. Notice delivered April 1st. They have 30 days. Millicent is telling neighbors I gave her the house. Also planning renovations and potential sale. Gordon's reply. Filed in Ohio. April 5th. Preliminary hearing set for May 15th. Filing for restitution of debt. $85,000 plus interest. Total claim $127,000. When do you want me in Rochester? I thought about the timing. The eviction notice expired May 1st. If they didn't leave, and they wouldn't, I would file the unlawful detainer on May 7th. The hearing for that would be late May, early June. But there was an opportunity. Before that, wait for my signal. Something is brewing. It might create the perfect moment. A few days later, Neil provided it. Henderson mentioned Millicent invited them to a party. April 25th, Friday night. A housewarming party. Celebrating that the house is officially theirs. I read the text twice. A party, a celebration, the perfect stage for Gordon's entrance. I messaged Gordon immediately. April 25th. Evening. Be prepared to drive to Rochester. I will send you the exact time. The week before April 25th, I made my final visits to my house. Tuesday. Checked the spare key. Still worked. Thursday. Watched Millicent meet with a caterer, discussing menu options for 30 or 40 guests. She was spending money freely. My money, I realized. She had access to Stuart's accounts, which he had funded in part by not paying me rent for 3 years. The math of betrayal. Friday. 1 week before the party. I called Gordon. Next Friday, April 25th. She's throwing a party at my house. To celebrate taking possession. Be there around 8 p.m. The address is. I'd already given it to him. Just walk in. The door will be open. Guests coming and going. Find Millicent. Tell her who you are and why you're there. I'll be watching from across the street. Gordon's voice was tight with anticipation. I've waited 8 years. 1 more week won't kill me. Gordon, I added. Remember, nothing illegal. You are there to inform her of the Ohio court case. That's it. I understand. But she's going to know. The past has caught up. I allowed myself a small smile. That is precisely the point. April 25th arrived. Friday morning, I woke up at Neil's. Calm. Focused. Today, everything changed. I went through the motions of the day, ate breakfast, read the news, had lunch with Neil. I didn't pace. I didn't obsess. This was a chess game, and my piece was perfectly positioned. Evening fell. Around 6, the cars started arriving at my house. I watched from Neil's living room window as guests parked, walked in carrying dishes and bottles. The music started. The lights glowed, warm and inviting. From the outside, it looked like a perfect party. Celebration, joy, new beginnings. Millicent appeared on the porch, greeting people, animated, laughing. Stuart beside her, looking less enthusiastic, but going along. 7:30. My phone buzzed. A text from Gordon. On my way, ETA, 8:10. I replied. Doors open. Walk right in. Find her. I settled into Neil's armchair. A perfect view of my house. Neil brought me a coffee. He sat in the chair next to me. We waited in silence. 7:45. 8. The party was in full swing. Music thumping. People visible through the windows. 8 to 10. Headlights turned onto the street from the east. The car slowed, pulled up to the curb in front of my house. Gordon's truck. Ohio plates visible under the streetlight. I watched the driver's door open. Gordon got out. He paused, just looking at the house. Bright lights. Music loud enough to hear from the street. Even from 2 houses down, I could see his jaw was tight. His shoulders were set. 8 years of searching. It ended here, at a suburban house party. Gordon crossed the street. He walked up the driveway. A couple came out of the house as he approached, laughing, carrying empty wine bottles to their car. The front door was open behind them. People were milling in and out, the casual chaos of a party. Gordon didn't hesitate. He walked right up the porch steps and inside, disappearing into the crowd. I checked my watch. 8:15. I leaned forward in Neil's chair, the coffee forgotten on the side table. Neil sat frozen beside me. That's him, I nodded once. That's him. Inside the house, the party continued, oblivious, for about 30 seconds. Through the windows, I watched Gordon move through the crowd, a glimpse of him between other guests. Scanning faces, looking for one person, living room, hallway, toward the kitchen. Then, Gordon stopped. I couldn't see Millicent from this angle, but I knew he'd found her. The man's posture changed, went rigid. The music was still loud. Guests were still talking, drinking. Gordon moved forward, out of sight, toward the kitchen. For a long moment, nothing visible from the outside changed. Then, someone inside turned the music down. Not off, just down. Conversations became audible through the open windows. Murmurs, confusion. More people were drifting toward the kitchen. Stuart appeared in the hallway, pushing through guests, a confused look on his face. The music stopped completely. The sudden silence was jarring. Guests started to filter out of the kitchen, back into the living room. Awkward looks. Glances exchanged. Through the kitchen window, visible from Neil's angle, I saw Millicent's face, white as paper. She was backed against the counter. Gordon stood about 5 feet away from her, not threatening, just present. Stuart reached them, stepping between Gordon and Millicent. Gordon said something. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw his mouth move. Calmly, deliberately. Stuart's body language was defensive, protective. Suddenly, Millicent pushed past Stuart, trying to get to the back door. Gordon simply sidestepped, blocking her path. Not touching her, just repositioning. She stopped, trapped between the counter and his presence. More words were exchanged. Stuart looked back and forth between them, increasingly confused. Gordon reached into his jacket, pulled out folded papers. He held them up, said something. Millicent's face crumpled. She shook her head violently, mouthed the word no. Stuart grabbed her arm, started asking her questions. His face was a mask of confusion. Gordon's voice raised, just enough for fragments to carry. 8 years. $85,000. Never divorced. Stuart's expression changed, from confusion to shock. He let go of Millicent's arm, stepped back from her. She reached for him. He recoiled. More guests were leaving now, sensing the drama, not wanting to be involved. Cars starting, quick goodbyes. The party was disintegrating. Gordon stood his ground, didn't advance, just stood there, an immovable monument to consequences. Millicent made a sudden break for it. Not the back door. She ran around Gordon, through the living room, toward the front door, not looking where she was going, pushing past confused guests. Gordon didn't follow, but his voice followed her, loud now, clear. "You can't run this time, Millicent. The court in Ohio has your current address. The papers are filed." I saw Millicent burst through the front door, onto the porch, stumbling slightly in her heels. The new dress she'd worn so proudly, now rumpled. Her face was sheer panic, mascara running. She looked around, wildly, saw the remaining guests watching her from the lawn. For an instant she froze, trapped. The house at her back, an audience in front of her. Stuart appeared in the doorway. "Millicent? What is he talking about? Who is that man?" She didn't answer. Couldn't. Gordon appeared behind Stuart, his face impassive. "I'm Gordon Hayes, her husband. We were married in Ohio in 2015. We never divorced, which makes your marriage to her invalid." The words hung in the quiet night air. Stuart just stared. Blank. Processing. "That's not. We got married in 2019. Gordon nodded. "Check the records. Cuyahoga County, Ohio. The marriage certificate is public record. While you're at it, ask her about the $85,000 debt she left in my name." Millicent made a choked sound. She turned and ran down the porch steps toward her car in the driveway, fumbling for her keys, dropped them, snatched them up. Stuart watched from the porch. Paralyzed. "Millicent?" No answer. She yanked the car door open, fell into the driver's seat. The engine roared to life. Millicent's car shot backward out of the driveway, too fast, nearly hitting a guest's car still parked. Tires squealed as she threw it into drive and sped down the street, disappearing around the corner. The remaining guests stood in awkward silence. Stuart remained on the porch, Gordon beside him. "You need to see the proof?" Gordon asked. It wasn't unkind. He held out the papers. Legal documents, from the Ohio court. Stuart took them with a trembling hand, looked at them under the porch light. His face went pale. "This is real?" "It wasn't a question." Gordon nodded. "Filed 2 weeks ago. Preliminary hearing is May 15th. She owes me money. She owes me 8 years of my life. And she is legally still my wife." Stuart looked up. "Why now? Why here?" Gordon's expression was grim. "Because someone told me where to find her. Someone who also had a reason to want the truth to come out." Stuart's eyes widened in realization. He looked around, at the lawn, at the street, as if searching for something. His gaze swept past Neil's house. I leaned back slightly, out of the light. Stuart couldn't see me. "My father," Stuart said. His voice was a whisper. Gordon didn't confirm, didn't deny. "I just came to serve the papers. Legally. What happens next is between her, me, the courts, and you." He turned to leave, but paused. "I'm sorry you got caught in her web, kid. But you should know who you're really married to. Or not married to, as the case may be." Gordon walked back to his truck, drove away. The last few guests scattered quickly, eager to escape the drama. Within minutes the yard was empty, except for Stuart, still standing on the porch, the legal papers in his hand. He looked at them again. Then he looked at his phone, probably trying to call Millicent. She didn't answer. I could tell by his expression. By the way, he tried 3 times. Finally, Stuart went back inside. The lights stayed on, but the house was silent. No music, no laughter, no celebration. I watched my son move through the rooms, visible through the windows, picking up abandoned drinks, throwing away paper plates, mechanical movements, shock setting in. At one point, Stuart stopped in the living room. He sank down onto the sofa, put his head in his hands. I felt no satisfaction at the sight. He was, after all, my son. But Stuart made choices. He chose Millicent over his father. He chose convenience over integrity. Now he was learning the consequences. Neil broke the silence. What happens now? I stood up, stretched. Now, the pieces fall where they're supposed to. Millicent will realize she can't hide. Legal papers filed. Address known. Bigamy exposed. I walked to the window. One last look at my house. Stuart was still on the sofa, unmoving. The house looked different now. Not festive, just empty. A stage after the actors had left. Gordon played his part perfectly, I said. Never threatened, just presented the facts. All legal, all above board. Neil considered this. Do you think she'll come back? Maybe, maybe not. Either way, she can't sell my house now. Stuart will realize his marriage is invalid, which means any claim she thought she had through him is gone. And the eviction notice still stands. Whether she's here or not, they have 2 weeks before I file. I turned away from the window. I should get some sleep. I'll call Martin tomorrow. Bring him up to speed. I headed to the guest room, but I stopped. Thanks, Neil, for everything. Neil nodded. What are friends for? In the dark of the guest room, I lay awake. Not from anxiety, but from the quiet satisfaction of a plan executed correctly. Tomorrow, Stuart would start asking questions. Tomorrow, the legal consequences would become clear. Tonight, justice took a step forward. The morning light filtered through the curtains of Neil's guest room. I woke up early, checked my phone. No messages. I got dressed, made coffee in Neil's kitchen, and sat at the table with a clear view of my house. Stuart's car was still in the driveway. The lights had been on all night. I knew because I had checked at 3 a.m. I couldn't sleep, despite the satisfaction. Around 7, Stuart came out of the house, still wearing last night's clothes. He walked to his car, sat in the driver's seat without starting the engine, and just stared at his phone. Even from this distance, I could see the defeat in my son's posture. Neil sat next to me at the table. He's still there. I nodded. He didn't sleep either. We watched Stuart dial his phone. Wait, hang up, redial. Millicent wasn't answering. After the third try, Stuart dropped his head onto the steering wheel. He stayed like that for several minutes. Finally, he started the car, backed out, and drove off, probably to work, going through the motions because what else could he do? I picked up my phone and called Martin Caldwell. The situation has escalated. I need to expedite the eviction. They have 5 days left on the notice. I want to file the day after it expires. Around noon, my phone rang. Stuart's name on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. I listened minutes later. Dad, I know you're there. I know you can hear this. We need to talk. I don't understand what's happening. This man showed up, saying Millicent is married to him, that she's in debt, and you somehow set it up. That can't be true. Millicent isn't answering her phone. I'm going crazy. Please, call me. His voice broke on the last word. I deleted it. 15 minutes later, another call. This time I answered. My voice was cold. Stuart, Dad, thank God you answered. Listen, there's been a huge misunderstanding. There is no misunderstanding. You received an eviction notice 2 weeks ago. You have 5 days to vacate my property. If you are not gone by April 30th, I am filing. Total silence. Then, I can't believe this. Over one argument? You're kicking your own son out onto the street? My jaw tightened. You kicked me out first. Physically. You chose Millicent over your father. Now you're finding out who Millicent really is. She's not who. That man is lying. It's some kind of scam. Public records don't lie, Stuart. Check the Cuyahoga County records yourself. Marriage certificate from 2015. No divorce filing. Your marriage to her is legally invalid. The call ended abruptly. Stuart hung up. I put the phone down. Minutes later it buzzed. A text. Not from Stuart. Unknown number. This is Millicent. We need to talk. I know you're behind this. Whatever you think I did, we can fix it. Please don't do this to Stuart. He's your son. I read it twice. Thought about replying. I chose brevity. You made your choices. Face the consequences. The eviction stands. Her reply was immediate. I need time. It's complicated. You have 30 days. The notice was served April 1st. The law does not negotiate. Please, Stuart doesn't deserve this. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Finally, I typed, You should have thought about what Stuart deserves before you committed bigamy and fraud. You have until April 30th. I blocked the number. Communication over. Neil, reading over my shoulder, whistled softly. That's harsh. That's justice, I corrected. She had every chance to be honest. Instead, she built a life on lies and tried to steal my house. I stood up, paced. She's not back yet, but she's reaching out. That means she's weighing her options. 5 days later. April 20th. The eviction notice expired at midnight. I sat by Neil's window in the afternoon, watching my house. Around 7 p.m. a car pulled up. Not Millicent's usual car. Something older. She got out and hurried to the front door. She was carrying a small bag. Not luggage, she hasn't left. She's been staying somewhere nearby. A hotel, a friend's house. Stuart's car was already there. He'd been home from work for an hour. Through the lit windows, I watched them in the living room. Millicent gestured wildly. Stuart stood, arms crossed, defensive. She reached for him. He pulled back. From this distance, the argument was silent, but the body language was clear. Conflict. After 20 minutes, they both sat. Opposite ends of the sofa, talking again. Millicent pulled out her phone, showed Stuart something. He shook his head. She tried again. He stood up, walked away. She followed. The dance continued for an hour. Finally, they seemed to reach a truce. Both of them slumped onto the sofa, exhausted. She's back, Neil observed. I didn't think she would. I watched them. She has to. Her job is here, her life, and she probably thinks she can still salvage this. Convince Stuart that I'm the bad guy. Tough out the eviction, then rebuild. My phone buzzed. Text from Martin Caldwell. Notice period expired. Filing with the court first thing tomorrow. Hearing will likely be scheduled in 2 weeks. The next week passed slowly. May 1st. Martin filed the unlawful detainer with the Rochester City Court. May 3rd. Stuart and Millicent were served with the summons. Cour date, May 22 ans. I knew they got it, because Stuart was at Neil's door that night, Neil answered. I listened from inside. Is he here? Stuart's voice was tight. I need to talk to him. He doesn't want to see you, Stuart. This is insane. He's really taking us to court? Why? We've lived there for 3 years. We have rights. Neil's answer was patient. You've been living there with no lease, paying no rent, in a house that belongs solely to your father. Under the law, you're occupants. He gave you the proper notice. You didn't leave. Now it's up to the court. Tell him. Tell him we're fighting this. We've hired a lawyer. This is going to cost him thousands in legal fees. I'll tell him. The door closed. I came out of the kitchen. Hired a lawyer. How interesting. Neil looked worried. Can they actually win? The eviction? I shook my head. Not with the evidence I have. The deed is in my name. No lease. Documented notice. Photos of the unauthorized modifications. The law is clear, but they'll try. They'll probably claim some verbal agreement. It won't work, but it will drag this out for a few more weeks. I sounded unconcerned. Almost pleased. More time for Gordon's case in Ohio to move forward. Mid-May. An update from Gordon. Text message. Preliminary hearing was today, May 15th. Millicent was a no-show. Her lawyer filed a motion to dismiss. Statute of limitations. Judge denied it. Fraud and debt collection can be pursued. Case moves to discovery. She has 30 days to produce her financial documents, or she faces a default judgment. I forwarded the message to Stuart's phone. My number was blocked, but the text went through. Let Stuart know the web he was in. 2 days later, Millicent came to Neil's house directly. Neil refused to let her in, but she stood on the porch, talking through the door. Tell David I know what he's doing. Using that man from Ohio to harass me. I'm filing a restraining order. I'm suing for harassment. I opened the door myself. My face was impassive. Gordon Hayes has every legal right to reclaim the debt you left him. That is between you, him, and the Ohio courts. I have not harassed you. I have simply exercised my legal right to reclaim my property. You orchestrated this. I provided factual information to someone who was looking for it. The consequences are yours, not mine. She stepped closer. Stuart is falling apart. He can barely work. You're destroying your own son just to get to me. My expression hardened. Stuart destroyed himself when he put your lies ahead of his father's dignity, when he put his hands on me. He apologized for that. He tried to apologize. Actions have consequences, Millicent. You've spent your life running from them. Stewart enabled you. Now, you both face the facts. I started to close the door. She blocked it. What do you want? Money? I'll pay you rent. Back rent for 3 years. Just drop the eviction. I want my house back. I want my life back. You can't buy that. Please. The word was desperate. Stewart is talking about ending our relationship. Your plan is working. You're getting everything you wanted. Just stop now. I paused. And for the first time since this all started, uncertainty flickered. Neil watched from inside. The image of Stewart on the sofa, head in his hands, broken. My son. My voice was lower. The court date is May 22nd. If you are not gone by then, the judge will order you out. That is the timeline. What you do with it is your decision. I closed the door. Millicent stayed on the porch for a long time. Then she left. I went back inside. Neil said nothing, but his expression said it all. I'm not backing down, I said, but my voice lacked its cold certainty. She's manipulating you. Using Stewart. I know what she is. I sat down heavily. But Stewart, I saw him that morning. In his car, he looked. I didn't finish. Neil sat beside me. Like you broke him. I didn't answer. Outside, the night deepened. My house. Their house. The contested space glowed with warm light. Inside, Stewart and Millicent were presumably preparing for a legal battle. In here, I was facing the reality that justice sometimes cuts both ways. That my son was collateral damage in this war. The hearing is in 5 days, I said finally. After that, it's out of my hands. The judge decides. Neil nodded slowly. But we both knew that wasn't entirely true. The judge would rule based on the law, and the law was clear. I would win. The question was, what did that victory cost? The 5 days passed in tense preparation. June 5th dawned overcast. And for the first time since this all started, uncertainty flickered. Neil watched from inside. The image of Stewart on the sofa, head in his hands, broken. My son. My voice was lower. The court date is May 22nd. If you are not gone by then, the judge will order you out. That is the timeline. What you do with it is your decision. I closed the door. Millicent stayed on the porch for a long time. Then she left. I went back inside. Neil said nothing, but his expression said it all. The eviction? I shook my head. Not with the evidence I have. The deed is in my name. No lease. Documented notice. Photos of the unauthorized modifications. The law is clear, but they'll try. They'll probably claim some verbal agreement. It won't work, but it will drag this out for a few more weeks. I sounded unconcerned. Almost pleased. More time for Gordon's case in Ohio to move forward. Mid-May. An update from Gordon. Text message. Preliminary hearing was today, May 15th. An appropriate day for judgment. I dressed carefully at Neil's suit and tie, the uniform of respectability. I drove to the Rochester City Courthouse downtown. Arrived half an hour early. Martin Caldwell met me in the lobby, leather briefcase in hand, expression confident. Everything is in order. Deed, eviction notice, proof of delivery, photos of the unauthorized modifications. Their lawyer will argue implied consent, but without documentation, they have nothing. Were you paying rent? Stewart hesitated. No, but we were covering household expenses. Do you have a written lease? No. It was a family agreement. Did your father ever ask you to leave before this notice? No, but... Thank you, that's enough. Martin presented my case, methodically. Documented sole ownership since 1985, no lease, written or otherwise. 30-day notice properly served. April 1st, certified mail receipt. Photographic evidence of unauthorized modifications. Judge Brennan reviewed each document. She asked me questions directly. Mr. Tucker, why are you evicting your son? My answer was measured. They took over my home without permission. They made changes without consulting me. When I protested, I was physically assaulted. I left to avoid further conflict and served them the proper legal notice to leave. They refused. Judge Brennan did not deliberate long. This is straightforward. Mr. Tucker Sr. is the sole owner. There is no lease. There are no rent payments. There is no legal standing for the defendants to remain. The plaintiff provided proper notice under New York law. The defendant's claim of implied permission is baseless without documentation. Furthermore, the evidence of a physical assault supports the plaintiff's claim that cohabitation became untenable. She looked directly at Stewart and Millicent. Eviction is granted. You have until June 30th, 25 days, to vacate the property. If you are not out by that date, the sheriff will remove you. Court costs awarded to the plaintiff. Gavel. Final. Stewart put his head down. Millicent grabbed her lawyer's arm, whispering urgently. The lawyer shook her head. There was nothing more to do. As we were leaving, Stewart tried to approach me in the hall. Martin stepped between us. No contact, please. Stewart's voice broke. Dad, please. We have nowhere to go. I looked him in the eye. Saw the desperation. My voice was quiet but firm. You should have thought of that. You have 25 days. I walked away, Martin at my side. Behind us, Millicent's angry voice rose, blaming Stewart, blaming the lawyer, blaming everyone but herself. The Ohio case proceeded simultaneously. Mid-June, I got a text from Gordon. Discovery phase is over. Her financial records show she's been living well. New car. Expensive purchases. Judge is not sympathetic. Next hearing, July 12th, is for the final judgment. Stewart and Millicent moved through the house like ghosts for the last weeks of June. Packing. I drove by occasionally, saw boxes on the porch, furniture being loaded into rental trucks. I didn't go in. Not yet. It was, technically, still theirs until the 30th. On June 28th, 2 days before the deadline, Neil mentioned he saw them arguing in the driveway, shouting, loud enough for the neighbors. She was screaming it was all his fault, that his father ruined their lives. He was screaming back, accusing her of lies and fraud. It was ugly. June 30th arrived. I parked down the street, watched the last truck leave around 2 p.m. Stewart's car left at 3. Millicent's, a different car, probably borrowed, left a fire, 3 diva. The house was empty. I waited another hour. Then I drove up, used my key, walked inside. The silence was deep. They'd left it. Clean. No vindictive damage. But it was empty. Echoing. My furniture was gone. Sold? Taken? Walls bare. Kitchen cabinets bare. Just a shell. July 15th. A text from Gordon. Judge ordered full payment. $127,000. Plus court costs. 3-year payment plan, or she declares bankruptcy. Her lawyer says she's filing for Chapter 7. Just wanted you to know. Thanks for everything. I called him. Our first real phone call since April. Gordon sounded tired but satisfied. She'll file for bankruptcy next week. I won't see the money. But it doesn't matter. The judgment is on the record. Her credit is ruined for years. She can't just disappear and start over this time. What will you do now? I asked. Gordon paused. I guess. Move on. Finally. 8 years, looking for answers. Now I have them. She's a fraud, a liar. And now it's documented by 2 courts in 2 states. That's enough. We talked for a few more minutes. Before we hung up, Gordon added, Your son called me last week, asked if I'd consider dropping the case, said Millicent was falling apart. I told him the truth. She fell apart years ago. She just hid it well. He needed to hear it from someone besides you. I processed that. How did he sound? Lost, angry at her, angry at himself. Maybe there's hope for him yet. After the call, I thought about that. Maybe early August. I heard through Neil's neighborhood grapevine. Stewart had rented a small apartment across town, 1 bedroom. Millicent had left Rochester. For good, Neil heard. She went north, then to California, to stay with her sister. Running again. New state, new start. Stewart filed for divorce immediately, or an annulment technically, since the marriage was invalid from the start. I received the paperwork as an interested party. The document was dry. Legal language. Marriage is null and void. due to a pre-existing undissolved marriage. Latin phrases that meant betrayal. August 1st. I received formal notice. Millicent Porter had filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. Minimal assets. Debts, $143,000, including the Ohio judgment. Debts discharged, except for the court-ordered restitution, which technically remains. But she'll never pay it. Gordon was right. The judgment itself was the victory. It's on the record. Permanent. Millicent Porter is a fraud. August 10th. I started preparing to move back into my house. I'd been at Neil's for almost 5 months. Long enough. Tomorrow, I would go home, reclaim my space. Tonight, I sat at Neil's kitchen table. 2 glasses of whiskey. A rare indulgence. Neil raised his glass. To justice, I thought, then shook my head slightly. To consequences. We drank. Outside, the summer evening turned to night. Somewhere in the city, Stuart was sitting alone in a small apartment, looking at the wreckage of his marriage and his relationship with his father. Somewhere in California, Millicent was starting over, but this time, with bankruptcy and court judgments following her like shadows. And here, I was preparing to go home. Not victorious, exactly, but vindicated. Tomorrow, I would get my house back. The question was whether I'd gotten back anything else worthwhile. The morning of August 11th, I pulled up to my house. The first time as the sole occupant since March. 5 months. The house looked smaller, vulnerable, paint chipping near the garage. The lawn needed edging. I sat in the car for a moment, key in my hand. This was a victory. Why didn't it feel triumphant? Neil's truck pulled up behind me. We'd planned this. Going back alone felt wrong, somehow. Neil got out, carrying cleaning supplies. Ready? I nodded, got out. The front door opened. That unmistakable smell of an empty house. Stale air, dust, absence. We walked through it together. Living room. Empty. Carpet marks where furniture used to be. Kitchen cabinets. Open and bare. My study. The former guest room. Still had the daybed. Stuart and Millicent had left it. Nothing else. I stood in the doorway, remembering the night I discovered this. The cascade of events it started. Where do we start? Neil asked. I looked around my empty house. Everywhere. We start everywhere. We spent the day scrubbing, erasing. I brought in the essentials. My old desk went back into the study. The daybed I dragged to the curb. Books went back on the shelves. My history books, finding their old places. The gaps were still obvious. The house was incomplete. But it was mine again. Mid-afternoon, while sorting my bedroom, I found something. Something Stuart had left behind. A framed photo from his childhood. Him, maybe 8 years old. Me. A baseball game I barely remembered. Both of us grinning. The glass was cracked. The frame slightly bent. Discarded. Or forgotten. I stared at it for a long time. Neil appeared in the doorway. Find something? I showed him. He was a good kid. He's still your son. I know. I put the photo face down on the dresser. I wasn't ready to look at it, but I couldn't throw it away. The work continued. By dark, the house was livable, clean, organized, functional. Still empty in places, still echoing, but it was healing. Neil left around 7. Promised to come back tomorrow. I sat on my porch, with a coffee, watching the street as dusk fell. Home. The word felt both right and incomplete. 4 days passed. I settled into a routine. August 15th, mid-afternoon. My phone rang. Stuart's name. I almost didn't answer. But something. Obligation. Curiosity. Some latent paternal instinct made me pick up. Stuart. Silence on the line. Then, Dad, I need to say something. Will you just listen, please? His voice was wrecked. Nothing like the confident son who shoved me. I sat at my kitchen table. I'm listening. Stuart took a shaky breath. I'm sorry for everything, for choosing her over you, for not believing you, for pushing you that night, for all of it. Pause, she confessed. Last week, before she left, she said she was planning to sell the house after you passed. Use the money to start over somewhere. She said it like it was reasonable. You won't need it anymore. Why shouldn't we benefit? It made me sick. I closed my eyes. Vindication tasted more bitter than I expected. She used me, Stuart continued. She used both of us. I see that now. But I let her. I chose to be blind because it was easier than facing the truth. You tried to warn me. I called you paranoid. I'm so sorry, Dad. I was quiet for a long time. When I spoke, my voice was measured. I accept your apology, Stuart, but acceptance and forgiveness are different things. Trust isn't rebuilt in one phone call. I know. I'm not asking for forgiveness, not yet. I wanted you to know that I see it now. Who she was. What I let her be. Stuart's voice broke. I lost everything. My marriage, my home, my relationship with you, my self-respect. I look at my life. I don't recognize it. That's what consequences feel like. I didn't say it unkindly. You made choices. Millicent was who she was. But you chose to believe her over your own father. You chose to put your hands on me. Those were your choices, not just hers. I know. Do you? Because I'm not sure. Are you sorry because you got hurt? Because Millicent's lies caught up and dragged you down? Or are you sorry for what you did to me? For pushing me out of my own home? For celebrating my absence? Silence. Then, quietly, yes, I am. I'm sorry for that. I believed him. And now, this is what happens. You work on yourself. You find out who you are without someone else pulling the strings. You build a life, an honest one, even when it's hard. When you've done that, not tomorrow, not next month, maybe not for years, then we can talk about rebuilding. Stuart accepted this, his voice dull. Okay, I can do that. I want to do that. We talked for a few more minutes. Practical things. Stuart's apartment, his job, he was managing. Barely. He'd started therapy, trying to understand how he got here. Before we hung up, Stuart asked, "The house? Is it okay? Did we damage it?" "It's empty. But it's intact. I'm guest lectures. Maybe travel. And I'm leaving the door open. Not unlocked. Not wide open. But not bolted. If Stuart does the work, if he becomes an honest man again, then maybe, someday, we can rebuild something. Not what we had. That's gone. But something new." Neil nodded, approving. "That's fair. That's more than fair." We sat together as the morning turned into day. The house behind us, solid, reclaimed, filed and processed. The marriage to Millicent, legally void. Third, bankruptcy discharge notice. Millicent's debts, gone, except for the Ohio judgment, which remained on her record. The paperwork was neat, condensing months of chaos into legal terminology. I filed them in a folder, labeled it simply 2025. That night Neil came by with dinner, sandwiches from the deli. We ate on the porch. Life was moving on. August 20th dawned clear. I woke up early, took my coffee to the porch. My house, my life, reclaimed. Neil showed up a few minutes later. A new routine. Neil settled into the second chair. "You won, David. You got everything you set out to do. House back. Millicent exposed. Legal vindication. How does it feel?" I watched the sunrise. It feels like justice. Cold. Complete. Necessary justice. But not victory. There's a difference. And your son? My son is collateral damage. He made his choices. But so did I. Maybe I could have found a way that didn't break him in the process. Neil shook his head. "You gave him chances. He chose her." "I know. But knowing that doesn't make the cost go away. We sat in comfortable silence. I finally spoke again. I got my house back, Neil. I got my life back. But I lost my son in the process. For now, at least. Maybe forever. Was it worth it? Neil didn't answer right away. Then, ask yourself this. If you hadn't acted, where would you be? Still living here, at their mercy, waiting to die so Millicent could sell your house? Or, kicked out for good, watching from a distance as they erased you? I nodded slowly. You're right. I had no choice. Sometimes justice has a cost, but injustice costs more. The sun was higher now. I finished my coffee, so... What now? Neil asked. What are you going to do with this new chapter? I thought about it. Live on my own terms. Maybe teach again. Guest lectures. Maybe travel. And I'm leaving the door open. Not unlocked, not wide open, but not bolted. If Stuart does the work, if he becomes an honest man again, then maybe, someday, we can rebuild something. Not what we had. That's gone, but something new. Neil nodded, approving. That's fair. That's more than fair. We sat together as the morning turned into day. The house behind us, solid, reclaimed. A man in his 60s, sitting on his porch, having coffee with a friend, planning a future that was, finally, entirely his own. Justice, I reflected, isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, as simple as a house key in your pocket, as profound as knowing you stood firm and refused to be erased. Sometimes, justice is just coming home. If you like this story, give this video a like, subscribe to William's Revenge Stories, and share your thoughts in the comments. To hear the next story, click the box on the left. Thanks for watching.